You are carrying a document that is older than every language ever spoken, older than farming, older than the wheel. You cannot read it. You have never seen it. But a nurse can pull it out of your arm in about 4 seconds. It is your blood type, and almost everyone treats it as trivia, a letter on a donor card, a box on a hospital form. It is not trivia, it is a receipt. Every one of those letters was written by something that tried to kill your ancestors and failed. The plagues they walked through, the rivers they drank from, the continents they crossed to get away. All of it left a mark, and the mark is still in you. So the question is not what your blood type is. The question is what it survived. Here is the number that reframes everything. Your blood type is not a human invention. It is older than humanity itself. Chimpanzees have A and O, gorillas carry B. Gibbons have their own version of the same system. Biologists call this a trans-species polymorphism, a genetic split so ancient it predates the species that carry it. The best estimates put the origin of the ABO system at something like 20 million years ago. Sit with that for a second. 20 million years. Modern humans have existed for roughly 300,000 years. Agriculture is about 12,000 years old. Writing is barely 5. Your blood type predates all of it by a factor of 60. When your ancestor was a small primate in a forest that no longer exists, that primate already had a blood type. And it has been handed down, unbroken, parent to child, every single generation since, without one break in the chain, to arrive at you. There are 4 of them, and they are not evenly spread. Type O is the largest group on Earth, very roughly 45% of all living people, though it swings hard by region. Type A is next, around 40% in many populations. Type B is far smaller, somewhere near 11% globally, but concentrated in ways that turn out to be a map of ancient migration. And then there is AB, around 4%, the rarest of the 4. AB is the one to stay for, because AB is strange in a way the others are not. The other 3 are ancient. AB is new. AB could not exist for most of human history, not because of biology, but because of geography. Something had to happen in the world before a single person could be born with it. We will get to what that was. First, we need to talk about the man who found all of this and very nearly did not. In 1901, at the University of Vienna, a young physician named Karl Landsteiner did something that sounds almost too simple to matter. He took blood samples from himself and 5 colleagues in his lab, separated the cells from the serum, and mixed them together in every possible combination. Some combinations stayed liquid, others clumped, the red cells clotting into visible clusters. That clumping was the answer to a question that had been killing people for centuries. Landsteiner's pattern of clumping explained it. Human blood came in distinct types, and mixing the wrong 2 was lethal. He received the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1930, nearly 30 years later, and blood transfusion became the routine, survivable procedure it is today. Here is what he had actually found. On the surface of your red blood cells sit chains of sugar molecules, antigens. A single gene on chromosome 9, the ABO gene, codes for an enzyme whose only job is to attach a specific sugar to the end of that chain. The A version of the gene attaches one sugar. The B version attaches a slightly different one. That difference is a handful of base pairs. Your immune system learns, in infancy, which sugars belong to you. Anything else it attacks. That is the entire mechanism. Not blood that is fundamentally different, the same red cells, wearing different sugar coats. And the reason those coats spread unevenly across the planet is that pathogens learn to read them. Start with the biggest group, because type O is the strangest of the common ones. Type O is not a thing you have. It is a thing that broke. The O version of the gene carries a single deleted base pair, one missing letter early in the sequence. That one deletion throws the rest of the genetic code out of frame, and the enzyme it produces comes out non-functional. It cannot attach anything. So the sugar chain on your red cells just stays as it is, unfinished, bare. And that broken tool turned out to be worth having. The clearest case is malaria. In severe falciparum malaria, infected red cells stick to uninfected ones, forming clumps called rosettes that block small blood vessels. That clumping is a large part of what makes severe malaria lethal. A and B sugars make those rosettes form more readily. Type O cells rosette less. Across multiple studies in malaria-endemic regions, type O is associated with meaningfully lower odds of severe, life-threatening malaria. Now look at the map. In parts of sub-Saharan Africa where falciparum malaria has been endemic the longest, O frequencies run high. But the sharpest signal is in the Americas. Among many indigenous populations of South America, type O approaches or reaches 100%. Not a majority, effectively everyone. That is not malaria. That is a founder effect. A small group of people crossed into an empty continent, and whatever they happened to be carrying became everything their descendants could inherit. A whole hemisphere's blood decided by the contents of a few dozen bodies. Type A is the old one. When researchers compare the ABO gene across primates, the A form looks ancestral, the version that was already there before the others appeared. If you are type A, you are carrying something close to the original configuration. O is the version that broke. A is the version that broke from. Type A runs high across much of Europe, and there is a striking concentration in the north. Among the Sami of northern Scandinavia, frequencies are unusually elevated. The same pattern appears among the Blackfoot of the North American plains, one of the few indigenous American populations with high A rather than near total O. Type A also tracks something else, the spread of farming. Beginning roughly 12,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent, agriculture moved outward into Europe. And ancient DNA shows it moved with people, not just with ideas. Farmers migrated, and their genetics went with them. Settled farming changed the disease environment completely. Permanent villages, stored grain, domesticated animals living close to humans, water supplies shared by hundreds instead of dozens. That is the origin of most classic crowd diseases. And a population's blood type distribution is one of the things that gets rewritten when the pathogens change. Type B is the geography lesson. Globally, B sits near 11%, but that global number is close to meaningless because B is not spread evenly. It is concentrated. Move east across Eurasia and B frequency climbs steadily. It peaks through Central Asia and northern India, where in some populations B is the most common type in the entire group. Then keep going west into Europe and it collapses down into the single digits along the Atlantic edge. That gradient is one of the cleanest genetic clines in human biology, and it follows a route you already know. It runs along the steppe, the belt of open grassland stretching from Mongolia through Central Asia toward the Black Sea. For thousands of years that corridor carried herders, horses, wagons, armies, and eventually the trade routes we call the Silk Road. Two explanations compete, and they are not exclusive. The first is straightforward movement. B spread because people carrying it moved a great deal and kept moving. The second is selection. The pathogen environment of dense herding and trade populations may have favored B, or at least stopped disfavoring it. Herding is a specific kind of exposure. Living in close contact with cattle, sheep, goats, and horses means a constant traffic of microbes between species. Whatever the balance of cause, the outcome is legible on a map. If you are type B, the odds are meaningfully higher that your ancestry runs back through that corridor. Which brings us to AB. Roughly 4% of the world, the rarest of the four and the only one with a birthday. To be AB, you need an A version of the gene from one parent and a B version from the other. That is the whole requirement. And it means AB cannot appear until an A population and a B population are in the same place, meeting, marrying, having children. For most of human history, that had not happened. A was concentrated in the West. B was concentrated in the East. Between them sat thousands of kilometers of mountain, desert, and steppe. AB is not an ancient inheritance. AB is the genetic signature of the moment the world connected. It required the steppe corridor to open. It required trade routes, migrations, conquests, the slow grinding contact between populations that had spent millennia apart. Every AB person alive is walking evidence that at some point, somewhere in their line, East met West. It is the youngest blood type, and it exists because of history rather than biology. There is a practical consequence. If you are AB, your red cells wear both sugars, so your immune system was trained to accept both, and it does not attack A or B blood. AB is the universal recipient. In an emergency, an AB patient can receive red cells from anyone. The inverse is O negative, no A, no B, no rhD, the universal donor, the blood that goes into a trauma patient before anyone has time to find out who they are. It is the only blood that works on everybody, which is exactly why it is always in short supply. But AB is not the rarest blood on Earth, not close. In 1952, in Mumbai, then Bombay, a physician named Y.M. Bende encountered blood that made no sense. It behaved like type O in one test and refused to behave like anything at all in another. It could not be matched to any known group. What he had found is now called the Bombay phenotype. Before your body can attach an A or B sugar, it has to build the base the sugar attaches to, the H antigen. A separate gene does that. In Bombay phenotype, that separate gene is non-functional in both copies. The foundation is never laid, so nothing can be built on it. These individuals test as O, but they are not O. Their immune systems reject even genuine O blood, because real O cells still carry the H foundation that they lack. A person with Bombay phenotype can, in practice, receive blood from only one source on Earth, another person with Bombay phenotype. Worldwide, it runs somewhere around 1 in 4 million. In Mumbai, it is dramatically more common, closer to 1 in 10,000. Same reason as everything else in this video. A small founding population, and the arithmetic of who married whom, echoing forward for centuries. Now step back, because the letter is not the point. Think about what had to happen for you to have a blood type at all. Every single one of your direct ancestors, everyone, without a single exception in 20 million years, lived long enough to reproduce. Not most of them, all of them. One failure anywhere in that chain and the line stops, and you are not here to have this conversation. That is not a small claim. Run it backward and it becomes almost unbearable. Every one of those ancestors lived through a world with no antibiotics, no clean water supply, no surgery, no understanding of infection at all. They lived through famines that emptied entire valleys, through winters that killed the people sleeping next to them, through plagues that took a third of a continent inside a few years and left no explanation behind. And in every one of those events, some people died and some people did not, and the difference was often nothing more than which molecules happened to be sitting on the surface of their cells. Not virtue, not strength, not planning. A sugar chain inherited by accident that a particular pathogen happened to find slightly harder to exploit. That is what your blood type is. It is the accumulated record of every filter your line passed through. The malaria your ancestors survived is in it. The cholera outbreaks are in it. The crossings, the bottlenecks, the tiny founding groups who walked into empty continents and became everyone who came after. You did not earn any of it. You inherited it, the way you inherited your eye color, from people whose names are permanently lost. And here is the part that lands. The reason you know your blood type at all, if you know it, is almost certainly medical. Someone drew it before a surgery, or during a pregnancy, or when you tried to donate, which means the survival record only gets read at the moment it might be needed again. Your ancestors carried this thing through every disaster the world produced, without ever knowing it existed, without ever being able to name it or thank it. It just quietly did its work, generation after generation, in bodies that had no idea. And now it sits in you, fully documented, printed on a card in your wallet. The whole chain of them, 20 million years of it, reduced to one letter, on one line, on a form you filled out without reading. It is not a category. It is the last surviving message from people who had no other way to send one. So what do you actually do with this? Here is the part that is genuinely useful, by group. Start with a finding that applies to most people watching, because it is one of the best replicated results in this entire field. If you are type A, B, or AB, anything except O, you carry, on average, meaningfully higher circulating levels of two clotting proteins, von Willebrand factor and factor VIII. The usual figure is around 25% higher than in type O individuals. This is not fringe. It has been reproduced across large populations for decades, and it is standard hematology. The consequence is a modestly elevated risk of venous thromboembolism, clots in the deep veins of the legs, and clots that travel to the lungs. Read that word modestly, and mean it. This is a small shift in a baseline risk that is already low for most people. It is not a diagnosis, and it is not something to be frightened of. What it is one more reason to take the ordinary advice seriously. Move on long flights, get up during long drives, and take sudden one-sided leg swelling or unexplained breathlessness seriously rather than waiting it out. If you are type O, the trade runs the other direction, lower average clotting factors, and the malaria association we covered. But O has its own exposure. In cholera, type O is consistently associated with more severe disease, the strongest evidence coming from decades of work in Bangladesh, where the illness is endemic and has been studied more closely than anywhere on Earth. For most people, that is a travel consideration rather than a daily one. Water precautions and vaccination where cholera is actually present. Now the item that matters most, and it is not ABO at all, it is RH. The RHD antigen is the plus or minus after your letter, and it is the one with a genuine, urgent, actionable consequence. If you are RHD negative and you carry a pregnancy with an RHD positive fetus, your immune system can become sensitized to the fetus's blood. The first pregnancy is usually fine. The danger is to subsequent ones, where those antibodies can cross the placenta and attack the fetus's red cells. It is called hemolytic disease of the newborn, and it used to kill and disable babies routinely. It is now almost entirely preventable with a timed injection of anti-D immunoglobulin during and after pregnancy. So, if you are or may become pregnant, know your RH status. That single piece of information is the most practically valuable thing in this entire video. Donate. Blood cannot be manufactured. Every unit in every hospital came out of somebody's arm. If you are O negative, you are the universal donor, and you are the blood they reach for when there is no time to type the patient. 20 million years of survival, and the most useful thing you can do with it is hand some of it to a stranger. Here is your one instruction: find out your blood type and your RH status with it. Not from a personality quiz, from a donor card, a medical record, or a donation appointment. Most people genuinely do not know theirs, and it is the single most portable piece of medical information about you. Then, if you can, give some away. And when you do, remember what is actually in the bag, not a letter, not a category. A 20-million-year-old chain of people who survived everything the world threw at them and passed it forward without ever knowing they were carrying anything at all. You are the current end of that chain. for now. If this changed how you think about something you have been carrying your whole life, subscribe. This channel takes one hidden system at a time and shows you the machinery underneath.